Hi, everyone, and happy Sunday. I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees here with the WCNC Charlotte Weather Impact Team. Um, Bear with me because this stream is going to be a little bit longer than ones that we have done over the past few weeks, just because we have a lot going on in the tropics. But first, we're going to start with our local forecast. Today looks pretty great. We are partly sunny out there right now. We do have a few low clouds still hanging around out in parts of the area, including Gaston County. We have some cloud cover still on our Dallas Tower cam. But overall, partly due, mostly cloudy by the end of the day, more sunshine than clouds, especially compared to yesterday. And our overall rain chances are going to be extremely low. So we're not really worried about rain today like we were yesterday. If you live in an area, though, that had heavy rain, we do want to watch for a few isolated storms by the second half of the afternoon. Mostly focused in on the fact that today sees lesser storm potential. We're still humid though, temperatures in the upper 80s, and we're feeling like the mid 90s. But again, overall, the storm average will be much, much less today compared to what we had yesterday. Now, storm potential is actually going to be a little bit lower for the next 2 days before we are eventually looking at the potential for more rain this week due to the tropics. Again, more on that coming up. There's Doppler radar right now. We are nice and dry, not really worrying about anything again for today or tomorrow. It really is focused in on the rest of the week. We can see really low end rain chances even toward the afternoon here. It looks like there's a little bit of a delay here. There's Futurecast at 5 o'clock. Again, most areas dry, only a few pop up storms, mainly going to be south and east of Charlotte. And areas south and east of Charlotte are also expected to see the majority of our rainfall when we talk about the tropics coming up this week. So if you live in Lancaster County, Chesterfield, Richmond, Anson County, make sure you're especially keeping a close eye on the forecast over the next few days. Again, today, lots of sunshine, only a few storms, pretty much a rinse repeat forecast tomorrow. You see coverage is a lot less. But notice by Monday night, we are going to start to see more cloud cover. This will be all ahead of the outer bands from what's right now Tropical Storm Debby. But we see the cloud cover Monday night. We probably won't see those outer bands approaching until the second half of Tuesday, so much later on in the afternoon. So let's talk about Debby, right? The storm right now is a tropical storm. It has winds sustained around 50 or so miles per hour, and it's about 200 miles southwest of Tampa. So the storm is offshore of southwest Florida here. You can see the latest update coming up at 8 o'clock. It did strengthen about 10 miles per hour with the wind speed, so about 60 miles per hour. And again, still southwest of Tampa, Florida. If you're not familiar with the state of Florida, Tampa is on the west coast, so the southwestern side, and it is, I wouldn't say directly across from Miami, but it's across and a little bit up to the top. So it is offshore of the Gulf Coast right now, but it is expected to make landfall likely in the Big Bend of Florida by tomorrow, if late morning, if not very early afternoon. The Big Bend, if you're not familiar, is that little curve in the state of Florida if you were driving toward the Panhandle. Now, the good news here is that not a lot of people live in the Big Bend. It's more so, um, you know, Everglades and things like that. But of course, there are some people who live there, but it's not as highly populated area. But the thing that we need to especially keep a close eye on, of course, is storm surge. Storm surge could be upwards of 9 to 12 feet in some of these areas near the Big Bend. We know oftentimes it's inland flooding from rain and storm surge inundation that is the worst. If you have friends or family in this area, just remind them to heed warnings, evacuate if told to do so, but we don't ever recommend evacuating if you're not told to do so. Again, right now it's a tropical storm. It is expected to make landfall Monday, potentially as a Category 1 hurricane. We've already seen about 10 miles per hour increase in wind speed over the past few hours, so it's not out of the question that we couldn't get to 75 miles per hour. And eventually it moves inland across Florida. But notice as we get to day 5, how the cone kind of expands like crazy. This is due to a lot of uncertainty in exactly where Debby will set up. Where the storm sets up is imperative to how much rain we're going to see in the Carolinas over the next few days. Now, I will say once again, the highest impacts are going to be near the coast compared to what we'll see inland, but we are going to get rain from this system. Will we see tropical storm force winds? Right now looks extremely unlikely because of the fact that Debby is expected to stall for a few days and potentially weaken and not stay over open ocean. Our potential for rain goes up, but the potential for strong winds goes down, even along the immediate coast. You can see there's only a 10% chance that we'll see anything like that this far inland. I would say our maximum wind gust speed probably close to about 30 or so miles per hour. Again, this is still subject to change, but we want to focus on the impacts and not the small changes that the forecast will see. Our biggest impact inland here in the Carolinas in Charlotte all the way to the mountains is going to be rain. So today and tomorrow, our rainfall potential again is low, so our flash flooding risk is extremely low. But notice as we get to Tuesday, that does go up to moderate in a few areas across Charlotte, and a very high, if not extreme risk for those areas along the coast that are going to see the highest rainfall totals. Now that kind of peaks here on Tuesday, that is, and then extends likely into Wednesday, Thursday, and potentially even into the weekend. There's a lot of uncertainty here, which we'll get to that in just a second, based on where the storm could go. Let's see if this will update our high to extreme risk on Tuesday. Um, and the reason, of course, why we're focusing so much on not just the storm, but also what the impacts will be near the coast is because, a lot of people have friends and family who live along the Carolina coast, have property, spend a lot of time there. So we want you to be aware. So highest rainfall totals, highest extreme risk of seeing flooding goes from pretty much Savannah all the way to just north of Charleston, just south of the Myrtle Beach area. So we have a lot of heavy rain expected over the next few days. And a lot of it has to do, of course, with Debby and what the storm's going to do. So we talked a little bit yesterday, if you were with us, about how high pressure to the west of Debby and a front to the north was going to send Debby, in its trek across the state, which you'll see this as we look ahead. But what's going to happen is as it does so, it kind of gets caught behind that front. Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich explained this amazingly yesterday, so I have to give him a shout out, but I also love this explanation. So sometimes these tropical systems can get almost caught and unable to move. And the way he described it was, imagine that you're in a boat, and of course you're boating, you got the stream and it's moving your boat. But you know how sometimes you can get almost caught behind, let's say, a rock that's blocking the stream from continuing to move. So now you're stuck in the same spot because there's no current to move you. That's essentially what's going to happen with Debby. So the frontal boundary and the low to the north blocks Debby from moving significantly further inland. So it has a high pressure on one side that's pushing it to the east, and then high pressure on the other side that would love to pick Debby up and move it out to sea. But that high is just a touch too weak. So we essentially have two highs that are too far away, too weak to move the storm, and then it gets blocked in by that low and pretty much unable to move for multiple days. Now, when it comes to tropical systems, we oftentimes talk about steering currents. That's the steering current. So steering currents, positioning of highs and lows and cold fronts, essentially is everything when it comes to where a tropical system will go. Because this one does look to get blocked by, again, the low to the north and the fact that there's no high pressure, no steering currents to move it, it is expected to kind of hang out over multiple days. And it's the stalling and hanging out that is going to increase that risk for flooding. So I've had some questions about, could the forecast change? Absolutely. We still have about a week or so until I guess the rain would be ending here in the Charlotte area. But right now, I think the best thing to do is prepare for the worst when it comes to the flooding. So if you live near the coast and you're being told to prepare for 10 plus inches of rain, make sure you are heeding those warnings. Inland communities, we will not see that much rain. Our rainfall totals here in the Charlotte area look to be about 2 to 4 for areas north and west of Charlotte and 3 to 5 for areas further south and east. We will likely see some flooding from this, but it will be multiple days of rain, or I guess rain extended over multiple days. So it's not just one day. We start the rain on Tuesday and we could potentially see it off and on from Debby all the way into the first half of the weekend. So we just have to be weather aware, keep an eye on the forecast, and stay tuned for any changes. If Debby were to bop a little bit further east and stay out to sea, the storm would be a little bit stronger, but we would see lesser rainfall impacts here inland and, of course, near the coast. But if the storm were to move even a little bit further inland, we'd likely have a little bit more rain, as it would have a higher chance of getting trapped. So as of right now, we want folks to prepare for flooding likely by the middle part and end of next week, multiple days of rain, lots of cloud cover, and temperatures will be a little bit lower in the 80s. As the forecast changes, of course, our team is here for you. We're updating you throughout the day. Again, our biggest impact from Debby inland in the Charlotte area is going to be heavy rain that could lead to localized flooding, but the flooding potential is much worse still near the immediate coast. Keep an eye on the forecast. Stay weather aware. We will provide updates, today, tomorrow, throughout the rest of the week with any changes that do happen. But I always say when it comes to these tropical systems, the best thing you can do is just prepare for that rain. And if it ends up being, 3 inches instead of 5, we're saying thank goodness. That's all I have for you today. Again, we have pretty nice weather the next 2 days, so hopefully you're able to get out and enjoy. But we will see more clouds starting as early as Monday night afternoon, evening, and we'll start to see those rain bands likely from Debby as early as Tuesday afternoon. Again, keep an eye on the forecast. Call your friends and family that are in the cone, in the coastal Carolinas, coastal Georgia, down in Florida. Just make sure they have everything that they need. It's all about community when it comes to any of these tropical systems. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you back on WCNC Charlotte this week as I'm back on Wednesday. Bye, everybody.